Welcome to viewchurch. My name is Kara. I'm so excited to share with you. We are on week 3 of a series we have titled The Need for a King. The need for a king. That in us, innately in us, is a desire for leadership, for authority, for someone to lead us. And that true desire, that true innate nature is all leading towards King Jesus, our Lord Jesus. But we talked in week 1 about our desire, our need for comfort. And Kyle talked about the Israelites making a golden calf. They lacked patience and they wanted comfort, and they sought a golden calf, an idol, in place of God. Week 2, Pastor Victoria brought down the house week 2 and taught through the book of Judges, which is a feat in itself to teach through the book of Judges. If you've read that book, it is a tragedy. It's like, okay, where are we finding the hope and the hopeless in this book? But she taught through the book of Judges and talked about God being our deliverer and our comfort and our deliverer in times where we go to other things. We try to manage our own lives, and we seek those as gods in our lives and our kings in our life. And here we are at week 3. We're at week 3 in this series. We will finish this series out at the end of Easter as well. And we are going to be talking about God being our king and our authority through the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel. So as we get started here, you guys, if you brought your physical Bibles or if you have your Bible on your phone, we're going to be in 1 Samuel in just a moment. But we have a tagline with this series that we are preaching here. We have a tagline that says, we all need direction, a need for a king to lead us, comfort us, and save us. When everyone is right in their own eyes, we need a king. Now, can I get a poll really fast here? I know I already had you raise your hand, so, I'm a teacher. I like little movements in the classroom here. Can I get a poll? Or maybe not a poll. Shout out some of your favorite streaming services out there. What are our favorite streaming services? What was that? Apple TV. Any Apple TV lovers out there? Any other ones? What else? YouTube TV. Netflix, what else? Hulu, Peacock. No one wants to mention Disney Plus in the house of the Lord, but Disney Plus is here. Yeah. But speaking of Disney Plus, I remember having, my children are still pretty young, but having young children and the Disney Junior channel. The Disney Junior channel is one of the best things possible. And when that went to a streaming service, it was like finding gold. Because when you would sit your little ones in front of a TV, which, like bad moms sometimes, but, mama's got to live sometimes. And you sit your kids in front of a show, like the little pirate show or whatever other, Sophia the First. And I know all of us are just, remember those days. Sit in front of Sophia the First. And Berkeley or Boston, they wouldn't watch Sophia the First, but they'd watch it with Berkeley. They'd watch this show, and it would be from start to finish just the show. But when my kids would go to somebody else's house who had cable, they would watch the show, and every 5 minutes, they were introduced to all of these things that they did not realize they needed until that moment. Right? This is like when the Amazon catalog shows up at Christmas time, or the Target catalog with all the toys, all the things that they didn't know they needed, but all of a sudden they need those things. And this is what happens in the cable version, right? The commercial comes on and all of a sudden they want that. And we have this innate desire that we're suckers for wanting things that are new, shiny, and exciting, whatever gets in front of our faces. But today, our title for this message, today what we're going to talk about is wanting what we already have. Wanting what we already have. So we're going to look in 1 Samuel here. Go ahead and open up your Bibles. 1 Samuel chapter 8 is where we're going to be. And I love that I'm preaching out of 1 Samuel. I actually thought that I was going to be preaching a little bit further into the history of the Israelite kings, but the Lord led me to 1 Samuel chapter 8 because this is the start of when kings were introduced into the history of Israel. We're going to go to a little history lesson. Don't worry, it's super short. But Pastor Victoria spoke about the Judges time period, and Israel as a nation was led by judges. And what that means is that it was a theocracy. So the priests were like the kings at the time. The priests were the ones ruling, dictating the law, all of those different things. And so they went from a theocracy, and in 1 Samuel, they move into a monarchy, okay, where kings lead. And so it's this big shift in the history of Israel for who is leading the people of God. Now, these judges, they still ruled the Israelites. They provided justice. They led battles. They organized the people. They weren't the greatest people, if you read the book, but they kept Israel as a nation, and they led Israel. But despite the leadership that they did have, they were not satisfied. And so we're going to go ahead and read the passage here, 1 Samuel chapter 8, starting in verse 1, and we might jump around a little bit here. 1 Samuel 8. When Samuel grew old, now Samuel, I got to stop for a second. Samuel is the last of the judges. He is a priest of Israel. He's the last of the judges ruling Israel. And he had 2 sons, and they were not good. So when Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. But his sons, verse 3, I skipped one there, his sons did not follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You are old." That's not nice. "You are old," the Bible's real blunt, "and your sons don't follow in your ways." So they're concerned here. They're saying, you're about to die. What's going to happen when your sons are now ruling Israel because they're not following your ways? So instead, now, appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have. But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel, so he prayed to the Lord. Now, Israel not only doesn't want Samuel's sons to be their judges in this moment, they're asking, and I'm talking about collectively as a nation, Israel is asking Samuel, hey, we don't want this theocracy system anymore. We want a monarchy. We don't want judges. We want a king. Samuel, he takes this in the next couple of verses. He ends up warning them. The Lord tells them, hey, warn them about what a king would do to you, to the nation, if you had a king. And what Samuel says to them is he says, hey, if you get a king, what the king is going to do is the king is going to take your wives. The king is going to take your sons and put them into battle. The king is going to take your money. He's going to take your land. He's going to tax you. He's going to do all of these terrible things. And basically, you're going to end up back in slavery like you were before, back when you were in Egypt. But verse 19 and 20, the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said. We want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles. Let's pray this morning. Lord, I thank you so much for your word. Lord, I ask that you would speak through me, Lord. May your word resonate on our hearts, Lord. As we open our hearts to you, may you point to the areas of our life where we have put a crown on ourselves and not a crown on your head. We love you so much in your name. Amen. Well, Kyle and I, not just me, we have 3 kids. We have Boston, Beckham, and Berkeley. Boston is 12, Beckham is 10, Berkeley is 6 years old, and Boston and Kyle are in Portugal right now at a soccer tournament. Insane opportunity. I wish I had more time to explain all of the different things, but it is crazy. Boston is a goalie. But Boston is also 12 years old, and anyone who has gone through the middle years, the middle school years with kids, you recognize, or you remember middle school, you recognize it's a weird time, guys. Middle school's weird, man. I mean, technically in our community, middle school starts next year, but I think 6th grade is pretty much those middle years. They start smelling, they start caring about what how they dress, or they don't care, and it's this whole issue between all of those things. You start to care. And you know that scene in, maybe you haven't seen this movie because you're not heathens like myself, but you have the movie Mean Girls, where they walk into the cafeteria and all the kids, all the high schoolers are all of a sudden animals in the wild, and they're acting out like being gorillas and elephants and all these things. That's, to me, that's middle school. That's not high school. That's what middle school is like, is kids are just crazy animals. Like when you're talking in like a circle in middle school, I remember being in a group of people, and you know how like in adults, if you're in a circle and someone walks up, you kind of open the way for them. You expand the circle. They're like the elephants that are protecting their young, and they're like, no, you cannot come in this circle. And you're on the outside just like, but I want to be in the circle. And you have this, like in middle school, that you're struggling so much to try to connect. You're struggling so much to try to fit in middle school. And I remember wanting to fit in so desperately that when I looked at all of the cool brands that were out there, right, Abercrombie and Fitch, Hollister, American Eagle, all of these brands that whatever you wore, you had to wear something that said the brand right across the front of what you were wearing, Gap, you know, those kinds of things. And I wanted so bad to have an Abercrombie and Fitch t-shirt. And bless my mother, she is amazing. She's probably watching right now. She is a frugal woman, and I'm thankful for those moments now as an adult. But she did not bring me to Abercrombie and Fitch to spend $80 on a t-shirt that said Abercrombie and Fitch on the front. So what I did is, in one of the volleyball tournaments that I went to, every time we went out to dinner, I would buy the cheapest dinner that I could possibly get, whatever was cheapest on the menu, and I would save my extra money throughout the whole tournament so that at the end of it, when we went to the mall, I could go and buy an Abercrombie and Fitch t-shirt. So, of course, I had some money on my own, and I had money left over from the food, and I went to the back of the store, you know, just beelined it to the back, found the sales rack, found something in my size, and I think it was just some orange Abercrombie and Fitch shirt that was so tight in the armpits that it like became crumbly after a while of wearing it, and it said Abercrombie and Fitch on the front, and I just felt so cool. I probably wore it once a week for the next like 2 years, and it probably smelled just like my son smells right now, but I wanted to be normal. I wanted to fit in. I wanted some status wearing that Abercrombie and Fitch t-shirt. And Israel here in this moment, Israel's not much different. Israel admits their desire that they want to be like all of the other nations, that they want to be like others. We have this innate desire to be like others. 1 Samuel 8:19 and 20. We want a king over us, then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and go out before us and fight our battles. And what the Israelites do is they look at everyone around them. They see all the other nations, and they see all these other nations with kings, and they say, we want that. We want status. We want power. We want to be inferior to others because that's what everyone else is doing. And really what it means is not just that we want to be like others, but I think we have this innate desire to be great. That we want to be great. We want to do something with our lives. I don't want to just look at the Israelites and be like, shame on them for wanting to be amazing or wanting to be like others. I think that God has built in us this desire to do something with our lives and to be great. And unfortunately, going back to Disney here, I don't mean to just slam it this morning, but Disney's kind of sold us this bill of goods that is really kind of a lie. That when you watch the movie Sleeping Beauty, you see that when she wakes up, she didn't realize she was a princess when she went to sleep, and then all of a sudden she finds out she's a princess, right? Rapunzel didn't know as she was locked up in the tower that she was also a princess. Cinderella gets turned into a princess. Aladdin, he has this genie, and he turns into a prince. Even the Parent Trap. Who knew that you would have this mysterious twin that you had no idea about? That there's these magical transformations that happen in movies over and over and over, that we grew up believing that we could become a princess, that magically we could become a prince, and magically a twin could show up in our life, or we could be an American Idol. And that's millennial generation, but every generation's the same. Right? We all have these ideas that something will happen in our lives that will make us magically great. That Gen X, I think the belief with Gen X is probably that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a Gen Xer, but that education, hard work, going the right path will get you the house, the dream, the car, all of those things. Boomers, you guys, with hard work, loyalty, commitment to a job, that you'll have the retirement plan that you need at the end, that you'll have the wife, the picket fence, the family that everyone's desires. Gen Z, this generation, is growing up believing that fame is the measuring tool of success, that with likes, with follows, with shares, that is what's going to get you to this place of greatness. I mean, even Berkeley. I asked Berkeley the other day, I remember she's 6 here, I asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she tells me she wants to be a famous gymnastics star. And I go, baby girl, why do you want to be a famous gymnast? Why not just be a really good gymnast? But I get it. I mean, I'm the one that grew up watching the Magnificent Seven win the gold medal at the Olympics. I mean, I wanted to too. Dominique Mousciano, she was my idol. She was amazing. But in our desire to be great, we often slip into the desire to be greater than others. Our desire to be great is something that God put in us. But when we desire to be greater than others, we desire an inferiority and a power and a prestige that may not be placed on our lives, that we're going to God with something that maybe he has not ordained himself. That no matter the generation, we have this inclination to be Swivel Steve. And what Swivel Steve does is Swivel Steve looks at everybody else and sees what everyone else is doing and measures himself up and wants to grab onto anything else that is out there. Ecclesiastes 4, verse 4 says, "Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this, too, is meaningless, like chasing the wind." Theodore Roosevelt is famous for saying that comparison is the thief of joy. Out of envy, we desire success in our job. We want to measure up. We want to be the best. We want to stand out. We desire success in our parenting. We want to be the best parents possible. We want to give our kids the best toys, the best education. We want them to be successful. And gosh, we should. We want that for our lives. We want success in those things. We also desire success in our status, that we look at others, we compare what others have, their house, their clothes, their cars, their brands. And Israel wanted what others had and didn't realize, or really they weren't satisfied with what God had given them in his timeline and his provision. That when we want what someone else has, we are rejecting God's provision and God's timeline. Proverbs 14:30 says, "A peaceful heart leads to a healthy body. Jealousy is like cancer in the bones." It rots us from the inside out. Let's look at the rest of this passage here, 1 Samuel 8, verses 19 through 20. "We want a king over us, then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us." Israel wants a king to be great, and Israel wants a king to lead them. And again, in our nature, the way that God has created us, we want someone to lead us. We want to be led. There's nothing wrong with that. That is the way that God has ordained us to live because he wants us to follow him. He wants to be the leader over our lives. But man, do we love a good leader. We love good leadership podcasts, good books. I love Craig Groeschel, Andy Stanley, great leadership concepts and teachings and those podcasts that they have. We go to conferences about leadership. And I will tell you, Kyle and I, we love to lead. I mean, we are in the positions we are in because we would rather us do it than somebody else. Okay, we get to control the thing, right? No, God does. Okay. We love leading. It's a part of our lives. It's a part of who we are. But I will tell you this, when Kyle and I go on vacation, neither of us wants to lead. We are at that. If you've gone on vacation before and you're a big planner and stuff and you plan the whole vacation, bless you, I want to go on vacation with you. Because what Kyle and I do is we plan everything that leads up to getting there and then nothing else. So literally the first night of vacation is always a big fight because it's like we're like naming our first child or something, just figuring out where we're going to go to dinner. We are both in like decision fatigue because of all of the things that we do in our own lives, in our own personal lives, and our job, of making decisions and leading, that we are tired. We're ready to just relax, but unfortunately, both of us are ready to relax. And so no one's really leading in that moment. And even those of us who are in leadership positions or leading in whatever capacity we're leading, we're a parent, we're a sibling, we're a manager of something, we're just in a leader in how we live our lives, we crave to be led because we're tired. We don't have all the answers. We know that there's someone out there, there's something out there who is greater, who knows. We want a strong leader, and we need a strong leader. But this is where we can get it so wrong sometimes. Now, I'm going to talk about something, and you guys can't go wild with this, but this is an election year, right? Like, Pastor Kara, where are you going? Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you which way to vote, who to vote for, orange hair or white hair. It's whatever, okay? I'm going to tell you vote because we want to be a good steward of our opportunity to influence and impact our world around us. So vote, please. But I think so many times when we get into these election years or anytime we're looking at leaders in government is we end up putting our faith in these leaders and that they're going to make the changes that are going to help us in our future. And too many times we put our hope in our vote and we take our eyes off of the one who gives us hope. No leader will lead us like God does. No leader leaves the 99 for the one. Orange hair, white hair is not running after you when you are in a pit. Okay, only Jesus does this. No leader satisfies all our needs, loves us unconditionally, stays no matter what, and is perfect. That when the Israelites, when they cried out for a king, they were crying out for a human to be in the place that only God lives. Vote, please, vote. Steward that opportunity. But our faith in our government cannot supersede our faith in our Lord. The leader we desire is King Jesus. He's our only hope because he cares about us. Just this last week, I was Googling some of the top trending stories of 2023. And as I was Googling these top stories, I noticed a common pattern with them. And I want you to think about what might be the common pattern as I read through them. Some of the top stories were the war in Israel and Gaza, the Titanic submersible, what happened with that, Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills NFL player who had cardiac arrest on the field, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and the death of Matthew Perry. And as I looked at all of these, I noticed a common thread, that all of these are crises that as we are watching them unfold, or we're waiting to see what happens, our hearts are desiring something with them. Our hearts are desiring peace. To know that peace can happen in relationships, or peace can happen, or we are horrified by what's happening because we desire peace so desperately, and we want to make sure that that never happens to our family or our situation or whatever it is. But we seek out chaos. We seek out these stories because we hope for peace. But the Israelites, they are no different in this situation. They asked for a king to be like every other nation. They asked for a king to lead them, and they asked for a king to fight their battles because we want peace. This is something that is so innately in our nature that God makes us this way because the way in which that we want peace is the only way that he can satisfy us and give us peace. That we want a king to fight for us and bring us peace. We don't want to live in a war zone. We don't want tragedy to strike. We don't want to experience pain. We want to know, how do I prevent this? Or how is this going to resolve? Both of these situations desiring peace. So 1 Samuel 8:19 and 20, we want to be a king we want a king to be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles. Now I want to take a look at the historical timeline here of Israel just a little bit. That Israel wanted a king to be like all the other nations, because what a king would do at this time, and you can actually compare it to leaders of governments and nations and monarchies out there, is what a king would do is a king would go and fight at the forefront of the battles. That they would lead their armies into this charge to grab land, to take over, to get more power and prestige. And they would also go out into those battles to create peace. that time and time again, these nations, they would have these kings, they would go into battle. And in 1050-ish, 1020 BC, around this time period, Samuel anoints the first king of Israel. And that first king of Israel is Saul. And we read in 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, all this chunk of scriptures, if you're unfamiliar with the Bible, is all about the different kings of Israel and then Israel and Judah as the nation splits into two, but the people of God. And we see king after king after king. So it starts with Saul, then it goes to King David. You might know King David, David and Goliath. We preach about King David all the time. He wrote a lot of the Psalms. He cries out to God in the deepest parts of his life. And after King David, we have King Solomon. And then after King Solomon, we start to see this kind of, well, not start. If you've read these chapters, you know that it's all up and down all over throughout the Bible. I think that's what I like about the Bible, though, like it's not just all roses and pretty. You see these people fall. You see them scrape up their knees. You see them fall flat on their face. And you see them also going to the feet of Jesus when they do that over and over again. But we have 39 kings that are listed after King Solomon in the history of Israel. And between the nations of Israel and Judah, there were 8 good kings. And when I talk about good kings, they're kings that followed the ways of the Lord. They were faithful to his promises. They did right in the eyes of the Lord, is what so many of the verses say. 8. Then we had 31 of them that were evil, who worshiped other gods, who married foreign women, who brought in other beliefs and gods, and they did not serve the God of Israel. So when Israel went to Samuel, this is what God was like foreshadowing when he talked to Samuel. He's like, hey, tell them what's going to happen. And Samuel's like, I will. And Israel said, no, we don't care. We don't care what's going to happen. We want a king. We want to just be like everybody else. Israel wanted a king to judge them or rule them, despite the fact that God was their judge. And Israel wanted a king to fight their battles, despite the fact that God fought their battles for them. They wanted what they already had and put their faith in humanity. On Wednesday this week, I played volleyball in college, and I've had bicep tendonitis in my right arm for years and years and years, and I've had a recent kind of flare-up and went to the doctor. And before surgery is even an option with a torn rotator cuff and stuff, they're like, hey, let's try a cortisone shot and see how that does. And I'm sure a few of you have had cortisone shots in the room, but the cortisone shot is just a steroid. It's supposed to calm the area down. And before I went into the cortisone shot, they told me, they're like, hey, just a warning, you're actually going to feel pretty amazing right after. It might be a little sore, but your shoulder is going to feel amazing. You're going to want to go home. You're going to do spring cleaning, get boxes down, paint the walls, do all of these things. So we're just warning you, you're going to feel so good that you need to chill out. You need to calm yourself down a little bit. Make sure you give a little bit of time of rest from here until a couple days. And then you can start, going. And so I get the cortisone shot, and, shots are painful just in general, right? The anesthesia is the worst part. But I go out of there, I'm a little sore, but throughout the day, my shoulder starts to hurt, more and more and more. And I'm like, what is going on? They said this is going to be sore. So maybe that's just what it is. Next morning, I wake up, and I am in so much pain in my right shoulder that I cannot move it. I getting out of bed, I'm getting my right hand over here. I'm driving in the car, and I'm like, okay, I got to shift. I got to get from drive to park here, and I'm putting my arm up here because it was radiating pain throughout my whole entire shoulder the whole day. I posted on Instagram. I was wrapping it up with ice all day. And then I started looking this up because I'm like, this is not right. There's something wrong with this. Turns out I got this thing that happens in 5% of people who get cortisone shots called a cortisone flare, where the cortisone crystallizes in the injection spot, so causing extreme pain. Awesome, cool. I'm the lucky one. But I think this is like so us that we are so easily swayed into believing that something out there is going to bring us back to peace. That's something human. And I'm all for medicine. Get your cortisone shots. But I think our hearts naturally want to reach out for things that are going to bring us back to this place of perfection, this place of healing, this place of comfort, this place of peace, this place where there's no chaos in our lives. And I'm telling you guys, there's no other place where we can experience that kind of peace and perfection than at the feet of Jesus in his throne room. As we are on this side of heaven, we are going to experience pain. We are going to experience trauma. We are going to experience all sorts of peaks and valleys and all of the in-between. And I love the fact that we get to live with a God who brings us peace here on earth and gives us glimpses of heaven. That's what I love to think about, is just Sunday mornings, it's a little glimpse of heaven. Worship in my car, a little glimpse of heaven. Smiles on my kids, a little glimpse of heaven. But there is nothing that can satisfy us the way that God does and his peace that he gives us. The need for comfort, deliverance, peace, the need for a king to provide these for us, they're all a desire that's beyond the here and the now. It's a desire for the one true king. That we want to be great. We want to be great. We want to do great things. John 14:12 says, "Whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these." We want to be led. Psalm 32:8, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you." And we want peace. Deuteronomy 24, "For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to give you victory." The Israelites weren't wrong in what they wanted. They just didn't realize they had it all along. Reminds me of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? She gets in Oz and she wants to go home, and so she goes on this whole journey to find the wizard, and comes to the end of it and finds out that she has the very tools to get back home on her feet that would get her home the whole time. We need to want what we already have. We don't need to go searching for a king, a leader, a status, a job, anything else that we believe is going to satisfy our hearts, because the only one that can is King Jesus. Revelation 17:14 says they will wage war against the Lamb, Jesus, but the Lamb will triumph over them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers. We have a king. We don't need to keep searching.